I'm Neftali with Take a Leap, and I'm here with
Jace.
Chloe Isom.
Carmela.
Will.
Brian.
Brianne.
Who's a cool ancestor that you have that you look up to?
Personally, I look up to my great-grandpa. There was one time where he was in this bunker and he felt this urge to get out of this bunker, and then he heard it another time and he was like, okay, and then he heard it a third time. He's like, okay, I gotta get out. So he got out of that bunker. Next thing he knew it, the entire bunker was destroyed. I think that story just showed me benefits of having your mind open to voices that God will show you.
One of the coolest ancestors I have is Ingvald Wix. He was born in Norway, lived with his family there. He was supposed to become a sailor, but didn't really like the life. It was too harsh. He said he didn't like the food. So his family ended up sending him to America, where I think he had some relatives there. But he came to America, loved it here, went to serve in World War II because of how much he was grateful for all that America had done for him. He got home from the war. He became a semi-famous violin player, raised both of his daughters to be very successful women. One was a child prodigy at violin, the other became a jazz publicist. I just love it because it really was the embodiment of the American dream, and he just loved his life and created a really good life and a loving family here.
My mom, well, I'm from the Philippines. She's an overseas Filipino worker, so she works in Italy right now. She's been there for like 15 years to provide for her family in the Philippines because it's very hard over there. I look up to her and she's very hardworking, loving. She's the one that I look up the most.
A cool ancestor that people can actually find is in Doctrine and Covenants, I think it is. In section 52, verse 29, it mentions the name of Zebedee Coltrane, which is my ancestor. He has a lot of church history, met with Joseph Smith, lived with him for years. He was the first group of people who was with the pioneers when they came to Utah. A bunch of cool history, so yeah.
My great-grandfather, his name is Leon Reedy. He's actually still alive. He's 94 right now. He means a lot to me. He's always been a good example of hard work, just like sticking to what you believe in. Growing up, we're from Texas. He had a ranch. We would always go to his house. You know, he would always have candy for us, even though he was a humble ranch farmer. He didn't have any money for us. It meant a lot knowing, especially after his wife died, he would still provide that for us. And we'd always go fishing at his place. He was a veteran, so he's just like all around just a wonderful person, and I'm glad to be one of his descendants.
My abuelita is from Aguascalientes, Mexico. She is a super hard worker. My grandpa actually served in Aguascalientes, Mexico. That's where he met her. They got married, moved to the States. She's super hardworking. Her degree didn't necessarily count here, so she had to go back to school as an elementary education teacher. Basically got her degree twice, so she's super awesome, and I love her, and I look up to her for that.
Welcome to this episode of Take a Leap. Join us as we talk to young people who are using their faith to change the world.
Hey guys, welcome back to Take a Leap. I'm James, and joining me for the first time ever is Ocean Marshall.
Hey guys.
And also, Saigel Deep Ghotra.
Hello.
Awesome. And so a little bit more, we'll introduce you a little bit more, Saigel. We have here you're a Sikh American student in your final year at UC Berkeley, exploring the intersections of political science, social welfare, and public policy. You're guided by a variety of Sikh principles, which we'll get more into in the interview. And you focus on expanding opportunities for marginalized communities. You were raised in California's Central Valley and draw on your lived experience to drive your advocacy, research, and community work. And you were the first woman in your maternal family to attend college and currently serve as a Sikh Lead DC intern with SALDEF, which is the Sikh American Legal Defense and Education Fund. And we want to talk about so many of these exciting things. I'm actually from DC myself. Are you a fan? Do you like DC? Do you like the East Coast? How does it compare to California?
I feel like, well, of course it's so different in the sense that, like, well, I go to Berkeley for school specifically, and I always thought of Berkeley to be super urban. It's right in the Bay Area, super close to San Francisco. DC feels like a perfect in-between to me, between, like, I don't know if a suburb is the right way of saying it, but more of a calm place versus a very busy place. It's really a city in between, and that feels like the perfect equilibrium for me specifically. I don't think I'm a city girl. I'm also located in San Diego now. My family has moved from the Valley to San Diego, and San Diego reminds me of the same kind of calm and peace and the ability to be busy if you want to be, but if you want to be chill, you can be chill. And that duality is something I felt in DC, and I really enjoyed it.
I love that.
So the first question we have for you is for like the listeners that might not know much about Sikhism. Like, will you explain to us a little bit about that and some of the values that you guys have?
Yeah, so Sikhism is the fifth largest religion in the world, and it's one of the youngest religions in the world. It started in the 15th century, and it's progressed since then. We've got many followers, mainly located in Punjab, which is in both India and Pakistan, but the diaspora has gone everywhere, and so I'm calling you guys from the US, but my family's in Australia and Europe, and so we're all everywhere. At this point, we follow very different principles, but some that stick with me or resonate with me the most would be seva, which is selfless service, and meaningful service. Sarbat Tabala, which is the well-being of all, the welfare of all. And Kirat Karni also is another one for me, which is honest living. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's a wonderful explanation. And I kind of wanted to ask, in your upbringing, in your family life, going now out with what you're doing with SALDEF, how have these principles guided you throughout your life and helped you to kind of shape the way you see the world and other people?
Yeah, so for me, I think very similar to many people with whatever values they follow. For me, it's not like a checklist. It's like a way of life. It's a lifestyle for me. It's ingrained in every part of me. How I move, how I think of myself, and my long-term path. Seva for me is leaving any space I enter, I work, my community, everyday life, everywhere I go. I just want to leave it better than I found it. For me, that's my way of doing service, whether it's me asking, can I provide a perspective that helps us move towards a creative collective good, or can I do something in the immediate moment to make things better? Can I stand up for something and make my voice loud for those that don't have one? Can I say something that can shape a conversation? For me, that's the way I do seva. If I could lead conversations or contribute to conversations that could lead to something else. That's how I exercise it personally. And that's a lifestyle again. It's not like I think of these values as a daily dose, I gotta do this one today and that one today. It's more I make these choices, and these values inform my choices in anything I do, whether that be in my dynamics with family or, my life.
That's really cool. I was wondering if you had a specific moment or story that really cemented these values and how they motivate you.
So I grew up in the Central Valley, which you guys mentioned earlier, and the Central Valley has deep immigrant roots, period. The first South Asian immigrants to ever come to America were Sikh Americans, and they mainly came as farmers. And growing up there means I was very much, of course, aware of the fact that my people have been there for a long time. And most of us are a tight-knit community of working class individuals. Working class, period. That means that I was shaped by an understanding of resilience, empathy, and the importance of collectivism. My personal family has faced multiple challenges. My dad immigrated with an engineering degree from India, the first university in Punjab, to be made for engineering, and that credential didn't count for anything here. So it was very hard to get a job growing up. We were unemployed for 6 years in my childhood. He even tried learning how to make pizza to get by at some point. And then my mom on my side, and you guys referenced my maternal lineage, my grandma was the highest education she had was till the 5th grade. So my mom was getting her GED for the first time. Her high school diploma didn't count here. So while I was in preschool, she'd be going to community college, attempting to get her GED, and then trying to attend college to get a child development associates after that. So I remember both of them staying up late, her specifically waking me up early, reading with me so I could see education as a possibility, something I could see myself in. And it didn't matter to me to just say education matters. She showed me by reading me her textbooks, helping me with homework, but also showing me her college work and just seeing her studying at my age. That perseverance really stuck with me, along with my dad's struggles in trying to get a job. So I say that about myself, but most working class families in the Valley carry very similar stories. And it's also informed by where we come from when it comes to Punjab, and I speak for Pakistan Punjab and India Punjab, all the way in the partition of 1947, which granted India its independence from the UK, but also led to our specific state to be divided. It uprooted millions of Punjabis, including my family, and later in the 1980s, that continued with targeted violence and genocide from the state. So today, many Punjabis live in poverty, face an opioid crisis, have low rates of education, and these histories inform how opportunity is a struggle to access and how urgent it is to make opportunity accessible. And I would say all of those things, knowing how my family got to the valley, then in the valley of restarting our life, what does that look like? All of these things teach me that same resilience and exemplify me being who I am today. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, definitely. I love how passionate you are. You can see it, how strongly you feel this connection, like with your heritage and with your family and with your people. I think it's really inspiring. And so that passion, I'm sure, has played a role in now you've taken a step outside of the Central Valley in California with education, but also we want to talk a little bit about the work that you've done as the Sikh Lead intern or as a Sikh Lead intern with SALDEF. What led you to work with them and what work have you done with them?
It's a crazy story, to be honest. So I came upon it by just searching up for opportunities I could potentially have as an undergraduate. But before that, I actually had an internship offer before I was even in the program to work with the Department of Education, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't afford moving to DC and paying for housing and having an unpaid opportunity there with no stipend and all the associated food costs with that. So I had to say no. And that could have been an opportunity that could have changed my life, to be honest. So then when I came across this DC program, I was perfect. They offer a stipend, great. That part is at least taken care of. And then whatever I'm meant to work in, that'll happen on its own. That'll follow. So then I found them. I applied for them. It worked out. When I got there, I ended up working for a nonprofit I felt really passionate about called API Vote, which is about giving voter education to the Asian American community specifically, which Sikh Americans do fall within, but specifically offering the perspective of my background. So it was mainly like that. But with Sikh Lead itself, I was able to also double as working on projects with them, such as Langar on the Hill, which is providing food from our background to members of the Hill, as well as anybody else who wanted to stop by on Capitol Hill. We did this in July. And we had great turnout. We had up to 100 guests there. We had guest speakers there as well. A little bit on that specifically is a practice of providing food to everybody. It's a form of seva, free food for everybody, but more than that, it's a practice of sitting next to each other on the ground, eating together. And what that really symbolizes in Sikhi specifically is an anti-discriminatory and anti-classist act where there's no tables, you have to sit next to each other, you're all eating the same meal, you're all talking to each other, there's no divisiveness there. That's what it really represented. And to do it on the Hill meant that we were developing conversations and facilitating conversations and connection, which I think is the most important thing. So when I think of experiences that Sikh Lead has specifically provided me, I really think of Langar on the Hill. I don't think I would have been in DC without Sikh Lead or SALDEF, and one thing I really took away was that striving for the welfare of all really does come from conversating with everybody, whether you think they would align with your values or not. You'll find more similarities than differences, and that empathy is so essential. We all, even in the Sikh American community, come from different backgrounds, perspectives, whether that be in class, whether that be in how we immigrated and where we find ourselves today. Even me talking about my community and where I come from in the Valley is so different from another Sikh American from another part of the country. They wouldn't experience life like the way I did, but then bridging that gap of how different we are in the different needs of our community and really building an agenda for the organization off of our collective feedback of how we're all in different places and we all need, whether it be the equity of opportunity and the opportunity for that to be accessible to everybody, and giving them that kind of feedback really shaped exactly how the nonprofit is going to approach work in the future, where they're going to do grassroots work. And seeing that outcome really made me again think that connectivity is really the biggest thing, and talking very transparently about things you might think are difficult to deliver, such as me telling a nonprofit that I think they're out of touch with a community that I think is being vastly ignored because there are working class that don't have time to be politically involved. Things like that. Having those difficult conversations is really what left a mark on me.
So going back to your schooling, you're studying political science, social welfare, and public policy. So how do you see these fields intersecting to help you serve marginalized communities?
When I went into studying political science, I really did not know what that would look like. I was like, is that history or what? But political science really gave me the tools to understand bureaucracy, how decision making works on an institutional level. And internally, that really helped me realize what could be the gaps in understanding how bureaucracy works for the everyday individual. If we're not a nerd about this, like, what would we know about this? And what should we know as receivers of an institution like this? How decisions are made. I think that's really important to know. And then I was like, social welfare, I think, would be a great addition to this. So then I started taking classes in that discipline as well, which is more so focused on repairing systems, navigating broken systems, on addressing inequities, such as providing stability to those recovering from trauma, addiction, economic hardship, or even separated families. I think that those are taboo topics that aren't really touched on or openly discussed about a lot, at least where I came from. So that was really important to me to gain insight on. And then public policy really equipped me to think about, like, how can we actually find solutions for these problems that I'm reading about, that I've seen in history, and I'm looking at mistakes that might be repeated, but what is an actual, like, law-abiding solution? And, like, making a law of this, if I were to make a law, what would be a solution to make a change for the everyday individual? So all of these, disciplines combined, I had to do the mix myself. The mix didn't exist at my institution. I just wanted to build a perspective as to how I could thoughtfully create policy, or maybe even work in grassroots with my community directly and not with an institution, with this understanding to create empathetic and, like, solutions based in lived experience that could actually make a change. That's all I really hope to do. And I'm in my early 20s as a student, so I don't know how that's going to manifest, but I think having that perspective of the mixed disciplines is really important to at least getting closer.
Definitely. And so I guess we're coming up on the fall semester. When does Berkeley start?
It starts next Monday. I'm leaving this Wednesday.
That's crazy. How are you feeling? Are you ready? What year are you entering?
I'm a senior.
You're a senior. So this is it. It's your last fall semester. How do you feel?
I feel like I just want my GPA to be good. Like, I cannot be slacking. Like, I have to stay strong is what I'm thinking. Like, I'm excited that it's ending, but I want to finish strong at the same time. That's how I feel.
That's a good way to feel. Yeah. You got to run through the finish line for sure. And so I guess reflecting on kind of your college experience as a Sikh American at a very diverse institution in UC Berkeley, how have you been able to learn and gained, I guess, from the other diversity at UC Berkeley as well?
I guess this is just me. I just love talking to people. So I did that a lot by integrating myself within other communities as well. There's so many cultural communities on my campus. So getting out there to learn about other people's cultures and communicating with members of their communities, but also sharing similarities within my community helped create many meaningful connections when it came to student government work. So I'm also part of student government. So when it came to creating events like that cultural communities hosted, creating multicultural events and mixing our things together was a great way to exchange dialogue, but also get people that maybe wouldn't talk to one another to finally intermingle, because a lot of our cultural communities have their own events, have their own kind of clubs, have their own spaces to mingle, and you wouldn't see one another otherwise, maybe, if that's just where you're at and that's what you just do.
Definitely.
It's super cool. You mentioned throughout the whole podcast just about how having hands-on experience is so important. So do you have any advice for college students on how to get that hands-on experience?
Yeah, I would say every institution's different. I personally go to a public university, and going to actually the East Coast and meeting colleagues there, people my age, I realized how differently institutions can provide for students. And as a public institution, I don't think Berkeley has amazing things, amazing programs, but not everybody will be able to experience those because we have 40,000 students. That's just the reality of it, right? Mm-hmm. So I think not relying on your institution for opportunities is a big deal. I was able to go to DC, thankfully, due to a scholarship that wasn't even connected to my institution. And I wasn't able to get any help from Berkeley to fund my internship with the Department of Education prior. So I became more creative in finding solutions to my ability to get to where I wanted to be. So it means not settling for the answers right in front of you or even your institution that you rightfully would expect to give you these resources, but also branching outside of it and finding what else could be there for you, whether that be based off of your interests, your identity, people you look up to and talking to them and seeing how they got where they got. That also really helps, I would say.
Is there an aspect of your faith you would say helps you to push through, like when you face opposition or you face unexpected challenges? Like, for example, as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, when I have a problem or I'm facing a challenge, like there's a plan through all of this. Even if it's adversity and it's really hard and it's really annoying and it's really complicated, that somehow I'm going to learn from this and maybe I'll help other people in the future who are facing similar challenges. And so for your faith tradition, is there an aspect of it or multiple aspects of it that help you when you face adversity or that continue to motivate you?
So many faiths are so similar in that regard that they give you that resiliency somewhere to persevere. And I think what really helps with me is even the history of my religion itself being so politically radical. It's not even just like a religious identity, it's political in nature. It happened during a time where we were fighting for our own religious freedom. So when I think about my lineage being of fighters, most people that are members of my religion end up being in the military in some capacity or thought leaders and wherever they are. I just think of, wow, even when I doubt myself, there were so many people before me that did such radical things, not knowing that they would be accepted for what they were saying or what they were doing, but they did it anyways. Being from a lineage of fighters in that regard really does help ground me that maybe I'll be able to navigate whatever challenge comes across my way, even if I can't foresee how that solution might be. And then in other ways, there are definitely principles that we have in the sense of, there's a phrase called Jardbikala, which is it's basically rising optimism even in the face of hardship. It means just be resilient and you will get there. Again, it's that military spirit. We definitely have those kind of principles more so. There's also so many times where I've talked to my grandma and she was things will work out, and our religion has shown that time and time again that things will work out.
I love that.
Yeah, that's super powerful. You mentioned before how your parents and grandparents went through a lot of hard times, coming to America and all that type of stuff. So do you have a specific story that you could share with us?
Yeah, that's it's a very interesting story, and I only learned about it as a senior in high school for a project where we had to learn from our family and note down a story really important to us, and we submitted it to the Smithsonian too, which is very cool. So they didn't want to tell me a lot of these stories because they were really difficult stories for them, but I was very eager to push and really learn more about it. So they did end up telling me. My grandpa specifically, he worked as a construction worker. After getting a lottery when my mom was born, he won a lottery ticket that helped fund his flight to Dubai to start working as a construction worker. From Dubai onwards, he would get contracts from that company to work in different places of the world as a construction worker with another group of boys with him that had all left India together to try and find a job elsewhere because, again, at the time, this is recently after the partition, so a lot of financial instability in our state did exist, and most people worked in military like my grandpa before he quit and got that lottery and then went into construction work. And so I just recall hearing so many stories about him going to Argentina, going to Myanmar, going to Malaysia, and then at some point he had the opportunity with enough savings built up from construction work and my grandma also raising all of my mom and their siblings as a single mom while he was away. So finally reunite after so many years with saved money to immigrate to the US with our documents and everything and applying for visas and then getting citizenship, all those exams and waiting for visas also takes decades. So reuniting again was a really hard thing, but it finally happened and they started working in a small business, creating their own small business, and then they still have small businesses in the Central Valley today, and that's how they made a living. But when I think about how their family was separated, how many years that took, my mom growing up without a dad, my grandpa not knowing English or any other language other than our own, and going to so many countries, risking his life. You don't know what could happen when you go to other countries. You don't know if you're going to come back home. I think about all that, and I think about the resiliency there.
Yeah, I love that. There's something really inspirational about people we're tied to. When you see your grandparents, your great-grandparents, or your parents, and hear their stories, what they sacrificed for us. In my own family, my grandmother was from Korea, and she was displaced by the Korean War, and that was really a difficult time for her, and it still impacts her today, right? Her family was torn apart because of that. And seeing how far she's come, and it led to her ultimately being here in the United States and being a part of my family and the blessings that's brought to me, is really powerful to look at that and be like, that's my grandma. Like, because we can take inspiration from all sorts of stories, from all sorts of different people, but when it's someone you're tied to, I just think it's really powerful. But I think also looking forward to future generations, we wanted to ask you, what would your message be for the young people of today, for our generation and future ones? What would you leave to inspire them, whether it's from your faith tradition or from your personal experience?
I think that's always an important question and a takeaway. And again, I always preface that, like, I'm just in my 20s. Yes, like, I've lived a lot, but I've got a long way to go as well. But in my small time on earth, I feel like what I've realized is our similarities go further than our differences, and I've been echoing that a lot through my specific talk with you guys, just because I feel like, well, obviously growing up as a Sikh American, not many people knew my background or where I came from, and I was honestly most people's first Sikh American they've probably met. But then after talking to them, if they had any questions about me or why my name is the way it was, even my middle name, Kaur, is usually a last name given to all females because in our religion specifically, we're anti-sexist and anti-classist as well. So in a time where India had a really prominent caste system, we rejected it by saying all of the women that are devotees of our religion are going to get the last name Kaur, which means lioness, and all the men were going to get the surname Singh, which means lion. So even in meaning, the surnames mean the same thing. They're both counterparts of one another. Women aren't less than men, but that is, at the same time, we're not of a caste where one person comes with more inherent privilege than another. So even explaining things like that to people, why my name was the way it was and whatever, again, it just bridged differences. And also I got to learn a lot about other people and where they come from, and that opened my worldview as well. And I think during a time where people are becoming more and more scared to talk to people, that will always go a long way, is being open-minded and being open to all the similarities that you could be encountering rather than the differences. And that has always been something that's relevant, I think, through time and time again in history. But I think especially for youth, that's an important thing to keep in mind, even when it comes to whether it be political, whether it be in terms of even in your own school, whether it be due to social media divisiveness as well. I think we all need to get out of our circles and be open to talking to other people. And that's my biggest takeaway, whether that be interfaith conversations, whether that be people from a different background than you, period.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. We love speaking to you. I really enjoyed hearing your story and everything.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was great.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for this opportunity. Thank you again. I heard about this opportunity and I was so happy to join on because it's a great example of that connectivity and that openness to speaking. I think interfaith conversations are so important, but also such an opportunity to be able to talk about my background and let people know what it's about. I think actively fights ignorance and hatred, which I think is such a thing today. And I think polarization is such a big thing too. And I love that we're actively counteracting that with our conversation here today.
Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, share it with your friends and family. And follow us on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube at Take a Leap Pod. I'm Neftali Rodriguez, and our production team includes James Sturdivant, Aaliyah Alexander, Heidi Hansen, and Ocean Marshall.